Good morning, one and all. Today's lecture topic is thyroid gland, very important for exam point of view. Thyroid gland in the region of neck, thyroid and trachea are routinely examined by clinician to diagnose the disorders, for example, goiter, tracheal tug. The surgical procedures are commonly performed on these structures, for example, thyroidectomy, tracheostomy, etc. Therefore, detailed knowledge of anatomy and relation of these structures is extremely important. Now we'll go through the functions of thyroid gland. It is the largest endocrine gland of the body. The hormones secreted by the thyroid gland, that is T3, T4 and calcitonin, regulates the basal metabolic rate, stimulates the psychosomatic growth of the body and plays an important role in calcium metabolism. The location and extent of thyroid gland. Location: situated in the lower part of the front and sides of the neck. In the diagram you can see it lies against C5, C6, C7 and T1 vertebrae. It extends from oblique line of thyroid cartilage to the 5th or 6th tracheal ring. Now the parts and the features of the thyroid gland. So in the diagram you can see the thyroid gland, it is a H shape. Then it consists of right and left lobe. The isthmus joins the right and the left lobe. In the diagram you can see the third pyramidal lobe, which is projecting upward from the isthmus, and it connects to the body of the hyoid bone by fibromuscular band called levator glanduli thyroideum. Now the weight and the dimension of the thyroid gland. The weight of the thyroid gland, it is 25 centimeters. Length is 5 centimeters. Width is 3 centimeters and the thickness is 2 centimeters. Isthmus measures about 125 centimeters in both vertical and transverse diameters. Now capsule of thyroid gland. It consists of true capsule and false capsule. So in the diagram you can see the plane of cleavage. Above the plane of the cleavage you have false capsules and below you have true capsule. Now we'll see the true capsule of thyroid gland. It is formed by the peripheral condensation of the fibrous stroma of the gland. The thyroid gland is removed along with true capsule to avoid hemorrhage during operations. Now the false capsule derived from the splitting of the pretracheal fascia. The pretracheal fascia, after enclosing the thyroid gland, is attached to the oblique lines of the thyroid cartilage and the body of the hyoid bone in the midline. On the medial surface of thyroid lobe, it thickens to form the suspensory ligament of Berry. Relations of thyroid lobes. In the diagram you can see the lobes, they are conical in shape, apex directed upward and slightly laterally, base at the level with the 4th or 5th tracheal ring, surfaces, lateral surface, medial surface and posterior lateral surface. Borders, two borders, anterior and posterior border. Now we'll see the relations of the lobe, that is on the lateral surface. So in the diagram I have marked with a blue arrow on right side. So on the lateral surface it is convex and covered by 3 strap muscles, that is sternohyoid, superior belly of homohyoid, sternothyroid and anterior border of sternocleidomastoid. So relations of the lobes on the medial surface, that is 2 tubes, 2 nerves and 2 muscle. So in the diagram you can see the 2 tubes, that is the trachea and the esophagus, and the 2 nerves, external laryngeal and recurrent laryngeal nerve. In the diagram you can see the 2 muscles, the inferior constrictor and the cricothyroid muscle. Now the relations of the lobe of the posterior lateral surface. It is related to the carotid sheath and overlaps common carotid artery. Now the anterior border of the lobe, it is thin and separate superficial and medial surface and it is related to anterior branch of superior thyroid artery. Now the posterior border of the lobe, that is thick and rounded and separates medial and posterior surfaces and related to inferior thyroid artery, anastomosis between superior and inferior thyroid arteries, parathyroid glands on left side thoracic duct. Now we'll see the relations of the isthmus. In the diagram you can see the isthmus is horizontal and it has two surfaces, two borders. Two surfaces, anterior surface and posterior surface. The two borders which I have marked with the arrow, the superior border of the isthmus and the inferior border of the isthmus. Now the relation of isthmus on the anterior surface, it is related to the strap muscles, that is the sternothyroid and sternohyoid, anterior jugular vein, fascia and skin. On the posterior surface, it is related to second to fourth tracheal rings. Then in the diagram you can see the superior border is related to anastomosis between right and left superior thyroid arteries. The inferior border is related to inferior thyroid veins. Now the blood supply of thyroid gland. The thyroid gland, it is supplied by superior thyroid artery, inferior thyroid artery and thyroidea imma artery in 30% of cases. Now we will see the blood supply of thyroid gland by superior thyroid artery. In the diagram I have marked this superior thyroid artery with a blue arrow. So superior thyroid artery, it is a branch of external carotid artery. It runs downward and forward and accompanied with external laryngeal nerve. At the apex of the lobe divides into anterior and posterior branches. Anterior branch anastomosis with its fellow of opposite side. Posterior branch anastomosis with ascending branch of the inferior thyroid artery. Superior thyroid artery supplies upper 1/3 of the lobe and the upper part of the isthmus. Now the blood supply of thyroid gland by inferior thyroid artery. In the diagram you can see the inferior thyroid artery. It is a branch of thyrocervical trunk from the first part of the subclavian artery. Now the inferior thyroid artery supplies lower 2/3 of the lobe and the lower half of the isthmus. Now thyroema artery, it is found in 30% of cases. It is a branch of brachiocephalic trunk or may arise directly from the arch of aorta. It enters the isthmus from below. Now we'll see the venous drainage of thyroid gland. Venous blood from the thyroid gland is drained by three sets of vein. In the diagram you can see the three sets of vein, that is superior thyroid vein, middle thyroid vein and inferior thyroid vein. Now we'll see the venous drainage of superior thyroid vein, middle thyroid vein and inferior thyroid vein. In the diagram you can see the superior thyroid vein emerges at the upper pole of the thyroid lobe, runs upward and laterally and drains into the internal jugular vein. Now the second set, that is the middle thyroid vein, that is short wide venous channel, emerges at the middle of the lobe to enter the internal jugular vein. Now in the diagram you can see the inferior thyroid vein merges at the lower border of the isthmus, runs downwards to drain into the left brachiocephalic vein. Now the lymphatic drainage of thyroid gland. The lymph vessels draining the thyroid gland are arranged in two groups, upper group and the lower group. Upper group drains into prelaryngeal and upper deep cervical lymph node, that is jugulodigastric lymph node. Lower group, it drains into pretracheal and lower deep cervical lymph node and nodes along the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Lower part of the isthmus drains into retrosternal or brachiocephalic node into the superior mediastinum. The thyroid gland is supplied by both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers. The sympathetic supply is derived from the vagus and the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and the sympathetic supply is derived from the superior, middle, and inferior cervical sympathetic ganglia, but mainly from the middle one. Now in brief, we'll see the microanatomy of thyroid gland. The thyroid gland consists of two types of secretory cells. The first, follicular cells. The second one is the parafollicular cells. In the previous slide, we have seen that thyroid gland consists of two types of secretory cells, the follicular cell and the parafollicular cell. Now we'll see in the diagram the follicular cells are cuboidal epithelium cell forming the wall of the spherical thyroid follicles. It secretes two hormones, that is thyrotoxin and triiodothyronin. These hormones are essential for normal growth and development, especially of the skeleton and nervous system. Now the second type, secretory cells, you can see in the diagram the parafollicular cells lies between the basement membrane and the follicular cells. They secrete hormone thyrocalcitonin. This thyrocalcitonin, it plays important role in calcium metabolism. I hope you have completed with the development of thyroid gland, but in brief I will be talking about the development of thyroid gland. Endodermal proliferation at foramen cecum of tongue migrates caudally ventral to hyoid and thyroid cartilages connected to tongue by thyroglossal duct, which obliterates later. Terminal part of duct proliferates ventral to second and third tracheal rings to form isthmus and lobes of thyroid gland. Follicular cells formed by endoderm. C cells migrate from ultimobranchial body. In the diagram you can see the pouch 4. So dorsal part forms superior parathyroid, ventral part forms ultimobranchial body, which forms parafollicular cells of thyroid, that is the calcitonin secreting cells. Now we'll come to the applied anatomy of the thyroid gland. Now we'll see what is goiter. An enlargement of the thyroid gland, except that during menstruation and lactation, is called goiter. It may be associated with hypofunction and hyperfunction of the gland. Hypothyroidism occurs when there is insufficient secretion of T3 and T4. The decreased level of T3 and T4 causes increased secretion of TSH. Hypothyroidism causes cretinism in children and myxedema in adults. Now in the image you can see types of goiter, the simple goiter and the nodular goiter. Simple goiter, it is an enlargement of gland without signs of hyperthyroidism. As you know, iodine is essential for synthesis of thyroid hormone. Now what happens when there is decreased level of T3 and T4? This leads to increased secretion of TSH from the pituitary gland. The TSH causes hyperplasia of the thyroid gland. This simple goiter commonly occurs in female at the age of puberty. Now the nodular goiter or massive enlargement of the thyroid gland. The gland in this massive enlargement of gland, the gland enlarge backward and downward, but it cannot enlarge upward due to the attachment of sternohyoid muscle to the thyroid cartilage. The backward enlargement is common because the thyroid capsule is thin posteriorly. In backward enlargement of the gland, this results the pressure symptoms, that is dyspnea, difficulty in breathing due to pressure on the trachea, dysphagia, difficulty in swallowing due to pressure on esophagus, and dysphonia, hoarseness of voice due to pressure on the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now we'll see congenital anomalies of the thyroid gland. In the image you can see the thyroglossal duct cyst. The thyroglossal duct cyst is an embryological remnant that forms due to failure of closure of thyroglossal duct extending from the foramen cecum in the tongue to the thyroid location in the neck. Now we'll see congenital anomalies of the thyroid gland. In the image you can see the thyroglossal duct cyst. The thyroglossal duct cyst is an embryological remnant that forms due to failure of closure of thyroglossal duct extending from the foramen cecum in the tongue to the thyroid location in the neck. Ectopic thyroid is also a congenital anomaly of thyroid gland. In this, the thyroid tissue may be found at an abnormal position anywhere along the path of descent. So in the diagram you can see the lingual thyroid at the base of the tongue and the cervical thyroid in the neck region. In this image you can see the cystic swelling in the midline of neck. Persistent thyroglossal duct is also a congenital anomaly of thyroid gland. It is usually benign. The duct persists as a midline structure forming an open connection between the back of the tongue and the thyroid gland. Ligation of thyroid arteries during thyroidectomy. So in the diagram you can see the superior thyroid artery is very close to the external laryngeal nerve. The superior thyroid artery and the external laryngeal nerve diverge from each other near the apex. The artery lies superficial and the nerve lies deep to the apex. Therefore, during thyroidectomy, the superior thyroid artery should be ligated as close to the apex of the thyroid lobe as possible to avoid injury to the external laryngeal nerve. Now, the ligation of inferior thyroid artery. The recurrent laryngeal nerve lies very close to the inferior thyroid artery near the base of the thyroid lobe. Therefore, during thyroidectomy, the inferior thyroid artery should be ligated as away from the base of the thyroid lobe to avoid injury to the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Thank you.